Welcome back, everybody, to the RacePlazaMedia podcast, Long Beach Grand Prix Special Edition.
Oh, I love that special edition.
My name is Milan, and I'm here with my sibling.
Pia.
Correct.
I love that you called me a sibling today.
Yeah, I figured I mix it up from sister.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yes.
I'm curious to see what other term you can come up with.
I have a list.
Oh, okay. Well, stay tuned for those guys.
So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our experience attending the Long Beach Grand Prix. We attended all 3 days, so yes. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think we're first going to start off talking a little bit about pricing and the logistics of all, and then we're going to talk about each day that we attended, also the races that we watched, and all that jazz. So why don't you tell us, because you have the price list pulled up, right?
Yeah.
So tell us what we bought and how much we spent.
Gotcha. So we bought our tickets January 31st, so quite early.
Yes, that is actually true.
So we got the pre-sale prices, so the prices were a little bit cheaper. So we paid for our individual tickets for grandstand seats right by the start/finish line.
Yeah.
We paid $205 for all 3 days, and it was an assigned seating.
$205 per person.
Per person, yes. And then so those 205 person was for the assigned seating. So those were bleachers, not very comfortable.
No, not at all.
We ended up buying seat pillows from Five Below the second day just because it was quite uncomfortable. Yeah, there we go. We spent $5.55 on per pillow, but it was definitely worth it because the bleachers were chilly. It was also uncomfortable, so it was nice to have that.
And especially the second, so Saturday and Sunday, the first half of the day was kind of overcast.
Yes.
So the sun wasn't out yet, and so that means also the bleachers weren't warmed up. So I really thought it was necessary because I didn't want to sit in the cold.
Definitely. So we paid $205. It was grandstand right by the start finish line. It was kind of in like the middle area of the bleachers, but we were close to the stairs, which is, I think I definitely highly recommend that. Don't sit in the middle of the bleachers because people constantly get up, people constantly leave or come back, and they have like numbers printed on them, so you know exactly which seat you are. They are narrow. It gets quite cozy, especially once it fills up on the Sunday, especially. So that's what we paid for the seats. We ended up buying the 3-day paddock passes for the Indy paddock, which cost us for both tickets $160, so $80 per person for all 3 days. And then we also paid ahead for the shoreline parking for 3 days, which was also $50. I think the parking was definitely worth it.
Yes.
We didn't have to worry about it. We knew exactly where to go. There was definitely still a little bit of a walk that we had to.
Quite a walk.
It was definitely quite the distance to get into the Grand Prix, and then it was the shoreline parking was also on the far side of where our grandstand was, but that was probably more our mistake that we ended up choosing that one. I don't remember why we ended up choosing that one, or maybe that was the only one that was available at the time.
No, well, we wanted for sure something that was at the start and finish line, but we also, because based on when you pick it on the website, it first of all looks like it's truly individual seats and not bleachers, and because I had never attended or never paid attention to the broadcast, I didn't realize that. And then also from when you picked it, I thought that we would be able to see a little bit further than we could, which it wasn't an issue because we saw people coming around like essentially the last corner, passing the start finish line, and then it heads into this like right-hander where people also leave the pits. But I thought we might be able to see further, but the bleachers would have to be much higher for us to see that far.
Yeah, I was talking about the parking. That I was hoping the parking, or I didn't realize how far away the parking was from where we were sitting. But yes, I mean, we can talk about the seating. I enjoyed it, especially for when the Indy part happened. Of course, you had not the podium, but you had like the introduction and everything exactly was right there. So we were right in front of that, which was nice. It was also great that we had a screen right in front of us. That definitely helped us stay up to date with everything else, because not all grandstands had a screen. So our view was extended through the screen, so we always kind of see what was happening throughout the track. But yes, I mean, I'm happy with our decision. But would I recommend those seats to somebody? I would probably suggest them to sit more in the grandstands like 25, 24, which is by turn 10 and 11, where there's where there also the drifting happened, which we'll get into. There was also some more chances for like a takeover or a pass in that section. So you might see a little bit more action there. And it was also right across where the podium celebrations were for majority of the races.
Yes. And what I think we forgot to mention is at the parking, there is a shuttle bus that can take you to the front of the parking, essentially, where it makes it easier to get to the access. So we use it like once.
Yes.
But, and they're really nice, and they'll ask if you want to be picked up.
Yeah.
But that was the parking plus. So can you tell me the total on how much we spent?
Yes. So we spent for the whole weekend $640. So that's for 2 grandstand seats for all 3 days, 2 Indy paddock passes for all 3 days, and parking for all 3 days.
So essentially, this is like, unless you get the VIP tickets, probably as much as you could spend depending on where you're seating, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think the seating was one of the higher ones. But then I was looking at the will call, like just Sunday seating, upper like seats kind of where we were, was also 100 plus per, like just for the Sunday.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know, so we definitely, I think we got a good deal.
Yeah.
I mean, we had, there's so much that we saw and experienced, which we'll get into now. So, I mean, let's just get right into it. No?
Well, I did also wanted to mention, because even though we are located in LA, we did opt to get a hotel room. And the hotel room was about 10 to 15 minutes away from the Grand Prix.
Yes.
But I thought, even though it wasn't in Long Beach, I thought getting to the Grand Prix was really easy.
Yeah.
We've never hit any traffic.
That is very true.
And we were able to make it to the parking very, very easily without any issues. I thought it would be a lot more clogged up.
I thought so too, but I think that's what's good about the parking that we ended up parking in, because it's on the edge, on the far edge, or the far, west side of the track. So you don't get into downtown Long Beach, where that's where the traffic would kind of come together. So that's why I think that's how we avoided all of it, which was really, really great.
Yeah. And then for the hotel room, which is technically not part of the package, but we did pay $130 a night. Yeah. And we stayed 2 nights.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, it was definitely out of convenience. Yeah. And it definitely helped us also because we wanted to watch so much more racing. Yeah. And we didn't want to drive back to LA every day for like an hour plus, potentially, depending on traffic. So we opted for that. And I definitely think that was the right call.
Yeah. And especially, I felt this when we attended Sonoma last year. But attending a Grand Prix, it is quite an activity.
Yes.
There is a lot of walking around. I mean, depending. Of course, you could just stay at your seats the whole day, but I think you would be missing out quite a bit if you would. But it is like a lot of running around, I thought.
Yeah, you definitely have to wear comfortable shoes.
Yeah, comfortable shoes. And so having that hotel within 15 minutes at the end of the day compared to making an hour and a half drive back to LA. Yeah. Definitely much better.
Yes.
However, let's start it off with the Friday.
Yes.
So on Friday, it opened at 7:30, but we arrived at 12.
Yes.
Which I think was fair, because Friday was practice day.
Yeah, there was practice in the mornings. Yeah. There was all just practices in the morning. So we decided we were fine with going a little bit later, because it was also our first day off. Yeah. So we decided to sleep in, and also to leave LA a little bit later so we could avoid some of the LA traffic going to Long Beach. It ended up taking us still roughly an hour. Yeah. To get down there, which was totally fine. We ended up parking, and then we started our trek around the Grand Prix area. We first went to our grandstands.
Correct.
Just to check out where they are, to sit down, enjoy it. We ended up, the first thing that we saw, actually not racing wise, but a practice session that we saw, was the Stadium Super Trucks, which was fun, because you hadn't seen
No.
the trucks compete. I thought it was a different type of truck. These were like more pickup trucks, but it was so fun because they have those ramps where they jump over. So it was really interesting to see. There's some. It looked like some close calls.
Yeah.
Getting down from the ramp, like landing, because as soon as they land, they hit the acceleration to take off into the long straight, into this long right-hand corner. So that was a fun first kind of racing to see.
Yeah. Especially, because if you just tilt the car a little bit in the air, right, then you really run into the chance of sending it into the wall, because this being a Long Beach Grand Prix being a street track, you don't really have runoff area. And then also, I would say, I think both of us were surprised how busy it was on Friday already.
Oh, it was so busy.
We thought Friday would be maybe a little bit less busy because people might be working. However,
there's nobody working on Fridays in California anymore.
Clearly, we weren't either. But it was busier. It was still the least busy day.
Yes.
But it was a lot busier than I thought it would be.
Yes.
However, it was also a lot more relaxed. So when you get to the grandstand, actually no one was checking the tickets.
Yes.
So you could and people were kind of sitting all over. We originally also sat, I think, in a wrong area for a minute.
Yeah.
I think we were sitting like 2 rows too far up or something like that. But we were kind of also sitting where there was room and we weren't really bothering anyone.
Yeah.
And then we're like, well, if someone truly comes up and it's like, oh, that's our seats, then we'll just move down. But it didn't really happen.
Not
because
that day,
it was very casual. And what I was also surprised by is that we met a few people, not that we were like interacting with them, but you would hear them, that a lot of people sometimes just attended for one day.
Yes.
They attended just for the Friday. They had tickets because there was this guy sitting next to me who was telling about or complaining that this guy was able to get tickets really cheaply. But he was only attending for the Friday, which I thought was quite interesting.
That is true. Yeah. So after we watched the super trucks, we ended up going around, walking around a little bit because there wasn't any qualifying didn't start until the late afternoon around 4:30, so we're like, oh, let's take advantage of just everything else there. So we ended up going to the Indy paddock, which was interesting. However, it was right at the time before close to their practice session, so we didn't really see any of the cars or anything.
We saw a few.
It was still a little bit more empty. We ended up going into the expo, which was really interesting. I mean, it was so crowded. There was a lot of merch stands, a lot of course, different types of vendors selling things. That's where also the paddock for the GT America was. So you got to look at some of the cars there, which was really cool. There's, of course, like giveaways and things like that, all kinds of like
sim racing.
Yeah, lots of sim racing. Then
there is little games that you can play to win things,
like spin the wheels or like different things. So we walked around there for a little bit, and then we decided to go do some shopping.
Yes. Also, before you got into the big expo hall, there was this mini one where they had the Senna McLaren standing.
Oh, that is so
was
true.
Really
that was
awesome.
So nice. Yeah.
And then they had a few other Acura standing around because this was obviously the Acura Long Beach Grand Prix.
Yes.
So the big sponsor was Acura. And so that was really awesome. They also had some replica helmets.
Yes.
And there was this one stand which was really awesome. We had contemplated, but then we couldn't decide.
Yeah.
They had artwork that was signed by drivers who were depicted in that. So there were some Charles Leclerc, there were some James Stewart, there were Marc Marquez,
Valentino Rossi.
So you had a bunch of Alan Prost, but in the end we couldn't decide which one. And it was, of course, quite pricey.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But we couldn't decide which one to get.
Because there were so many that we would want to get. So we ended up
that was awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool. We ended up buying a bunch of different types of merch. We supported the Grandstand Project, which is a brand new clothing line by a woman. She designs clothing I don't know if it's for women in motorsport. It also supports women in motorsport. 3% of the earnings go to women in motorsport, which was really we really appreciated it. So we ended up buying 2 hats, and I also bought a little
patch
patch. Thank you. I ended up buying a jacket, which came handy for you because it was quite chilly. So you ended up wearing my jacket because you didn't bring anything long sleeve because we didn't expect it to be quite as chilly in the morning.
I thought it was so ridiculous because usually whenever I go somewhere, like I think as adults, sometimes you have this thing where you just overpack.
Yes.
Right? You pack so much stuff. And then this time around, I was like, listen, we're going to Long Beach.
Yeah.
I live in motherfucking California, right? And it's been hot.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bring a jacket,
Yes.
right? And then you confirmed it, but I was like, I'm going to bring one long sleeve thing that was like a thinner long sleeve that I could also wear in the sun. And then immediately 2 days of like overcast, and the sun ended up coming out, but I definitely needed the jacket, so I do appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it was quite chilly in the mornings, or the first half of the day, like you said. So I had bought a jacket, which ended up working out perfectly fine. We got some Formula Drift merch, shirts.
I bought a Indy.
Oh,
Grand
the
Prix
most
hat.
popular Indy hat at the Long Beach Grand Prix. There was one stand that we had seen that had sold them. You immediately caught eye. Too fast for myself because I wanted it.
Yes.
So of course you got dips. So you got the hat, and then you were wearing it as we were.
Yeah,
like you immediately put it on.
Yeah, I took off my other hat, and I'm wearing the hat, I think, in one of their recap videos.
Could be, yes.
No.
Are you?
Am I? No. I'll wear it next video.
Yeah. Wear it next time because we were wearing the Grand Prix, the grandstand ones. But yeah, so you got this new hat, and immediately people were coming to. I was like, oh my God, that's such a great hat. Where did you get the hat? Did you buy it here? Where did you get it? And we told people specifically where they have to go for it because it was literally just there are a bunch of indie merch stands.
Yeah.
But we had only seen it at that one stand. Yeah. And luckily you had gotten it.
Yeah. Because I was like, you're trying to buy it.
It's nice because it's like this corduroy with the beige and forest green colors and India. It looks really nice.
Yeah, it looks really awesome. I mean, part of me thinks I should just get it.
No, it's fine.
It's fine now.
You gotta stay tuned for it.
Yeah, I'll wear it next weekend.
Yeah, but we ended up buying a bunch of merch that day. We didn't buy food because we had brought snacks.
We brought a lot of snacks.
I went to Trader Joe's before and I
brought Trader Joe's.
Yes, that too.
It's also so ridiculous because it's not like if we would have forgotten anything. It's not like we're an hour away from home.
No,
right? It's like Long Beach has plenty of stores to get something from, but it's
I mean,
fine.
it's still cheaper because food was pricey. I mean, as expected.
It was cheaper than I thought it would be.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still not cheap. Especially some of the portions were not justifiable, especially on the last day, that stuff that we got.
That is true.
But I think the main race that we watched that day, that I want to point out.
Or the coolest thing.
The coolest
By
thing,
far.
like the highlight of day one for us, is the Super Drift Challenge.
Yes.
We stood right on by the fence of the corner turn 10 going into 11. That's where they drift right along the edge of the wall. Like inches are not justifiable. It would be more like centimeters or millimeters. That's how close they were to the wall. And we were standing so close, we got debris, like burnt rubber all over ourselves. We were covered in the smell of it, just like the exhaust and the burning rubber of the tires and everything. But it was so thrilling.
It was also, so we had, or at least I know I had tuned into Formula Drift before because you can actually watch it for free on YouTube when it's happening live. And you see them drift, but and this is the thing with motorsport. This happens also in Formula One. Really, anything that you watch is like, you never realize how fast they're going on camera. On camera, you never realize, because the first time they came drifting around the corner, I was like, very surprised by the speed, but I also was like, you're not making this corner. Both of you guys are going to end up in the wall right now. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I will include a clip.
Perfect.
where I have probably included clips already of this, and maybe we'll upload something on our socials.
Yes, yeah.
But if you're on Spotify, just imagine some cool drifting, okay?
Or go to the YouTube to find the links for
Actually,
it.
that makes more sense.
I mean, imagine it and then see how close you got. Of course, the cars looked really cool
Yes,
too.
they
They
were
had
really
really fun
awesome.
like wrapping of them, but it was so thrilling, the adrenaline from just watching it and
Yeah.
standing so close. Like it was like the air was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I wish, and you had said it too then, like we would have brought like a mask or or beanie or like a bandana or something to
Yeah.
cover.
So you're not breathing in all those particles.
Yeah, because it was brutal. Like I held my breath.
Oh, you did? I was like,
after a while, just to be like, because it was intense.
Yeah,
but
that's
it was also so fun, the atmosphere around it,
Yes.
because everybody was feeling the same way, and then also everybody who was standing close to us. There are people who got to be between our fence and the actual race fence, and they were of course covered even more, and then also everybody was like, oh
Yeah.
did you see that, did you
Yeah.
feel it,
We're
do you
all-
smell it?
I think when the first car came around, I think we all collectively just looked at each other, because I think for most of us, it maybe was the first time we saw something like this, and we're all just looking at each other and being like, oh my God. But
Yeah.
I think in the majority of all the videos I recorded, at the end, you can hear me like almost cackling because I'm like, oh my God.
Yes, because it was
go.
so like it's also like I love motorsports for many different reasons, but going to see it live, the sound
yeah.
is just so fun. I
Yeah.
have goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And it's also just seeing the pure skill and athleticism of
Yeah.
what those drivers can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're on the edge, you know, like any mistake puts them into the wall. But it was definitely the big highlight of day one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really, really
Yes.
awesome to
Oh,
witness that live.
I do want to mention, before we move on to day number 2, one little thing that I think we both were disappointed about.
Okay.
So on day 1, they also had the IndyCar autograph session.
Oh God, yes.
And it was
What a mess.
a fucking mess. So we had the paddock passes, so we got access earlier, because the Indy autograph session was accessible to everybody, but who didn't have the paddock pass, they had to wait outside in line for a while, and whoever had the paddock pass already had a stamp, so they could go in earlier. So we went in like an hour before
Yeah, an hour.
the autograph session started, and lines even inside the paddock, which makes sense, were already quite long. But the issue for us was the lines were a mess. You didn't know where one line ended, where another started, which line goes towards. And even if you're in a line, you really have a chance of only getting autographs from one team.
Yeah, most likely one team, because the line is so long for
Yeah.
one already that in that hour,
Yeah.
you might not have the chance to go to another one. Whereas when we were in Sonoma, and I get this is a much smaller event,
Yes.
but they ended up just setting up all the drivers on like these
Long
long
table.
tables, and then people formed a line, and then you just walk down the line, and
Yeah.
you got a signature essentially from everyone.
Yeah.
And if you don't want it, it's fine. But they also had a bunch of stuff that every driver had, like their driver card and pictures, and they were giving out
Yes.
stickers. And at the beginning of the lineup, they handed out these huge posters from Sonoma specifically, and you had 2 separate things for everyone to sign.
Yeah.
Or you could just be like, okay, for this everyone can sign, and then this one only. However you want to manage
Yeah.
it, right? And I thought it was handled much better.
Yeah.
I don't know why they're not doing it. Maybe there's a logistics reason, but I think it might be easier if you have all drivers in one place, and then people just line up for that. But I don't know if they're like, this is too long of a line. I don't know.
Maybe, but I still think there's other ways to go
Yeah.
about it to make it clearer which line goes where. And like it was quite a big mess. And I understand. No, I don't understand it, because it's also
I refuse to understand.
No, because it's not the first time that
Yeah.
Indy raced in Long Beach.
Yeah.
Indy is not new.
Yeah.
Indy is not small.
Yeah.
You know, especially here in the US, the fan base is large for Indy.
Yeah.
So it's not the first time that there's this big crowd of people. Like maybe it's getting bigger. But it's still, I don't think that's justification for how messy it was.
Yeah.
Congratulations to everybody who got signatures.
Yeah.
Good for them. For us, it ended up not being as much of a priority.
Yeah.
We preferred seeing the qualifying and then the IMSA we watched a little bit of IMSA qualifying.
Yeah.
Actually, we ended up reserving our spot for the drift challenge then.
Yeah.
So we were standing there instead of waiting in line for maybe a signature.
Yeah, so we ended up catching the qualifying for the IMSA.
Yeah,
instead.
the tail end of the IMSA qualifying and then the drift challenge. Yeah.
So I think if you're a huge Indy fan or you have a driver, then I think maybe if this would have been F1, it would have been different for me because would have been definitely a driver where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stand here.
Well, because we're also more connected to it.
Correct.
We've been with Formula One for much longer. I personally, I would have loved to get a signature from Pato Award, but everybody wants a signature from Pato because he's very popular right now. We did get to see him in the distance.
Yes.
For the driver parade. I remember I saw.
Who else did you see?
I saw James Hinchcliffe. I saw him. He passed me with probably as far as you're sitting right now from me. That's how fast.
So 7 kilometers.
Exactly. On the other part of the earth. No, he was literally just barely a couple feet away. And I was at first uncertain if it was him, but then I was very certain it was him. And I checked his Instagram and it was him. So he was there. But anyways.
Also Nasser.
Yeah, Felipe Nasser we saw because he had won one of his races, which was really fun. But anyways, let's move on to day 2. The first thing we saw on day 2 was the historic Formula exhibition race number 1.
Okay, so first of all, really awesome. And we were really hoping to also see the 6-wheel.
Oh, Formula One car, yes.
That didn't make it, unfortunately. But it was really awesome to see this big variety of different F1 cars because also back in the day, they didn't have as much regulation. So they did look quite different across the field.
Yes. They also sounded quite different.
Yes, and sounded excessively different.
Yes.
Some of them sounded so nice.
Yes. I mean, it was really it was probably the highlight for day 2 for me.
Yes. However, the big bummer was that then when the race started, unfortunately, one of the cars immediately crashed. I don't know if he had a mechanical failure. So then it ended up red flagging the race.
Yeah.
And that was it. And essentially that one lap. And then they had a podium ceremony and they're like, yeah, won. Congratulations. Guy was just like, yes, thank you.
Yeah. That is true. But I mean, just seeing the cars was really, really cool. Hearing the cars.
Some of them were unhinged.
Some of them were unhinged. I also wanted to say, because we had watched a couple of Niki Lauda's old races, and some of the cars, at least one or two of the cars we had seen in there before, which was really cool to see it in real life. And they were also displayed in the expo hall, so you could see them up close, which was really, and it's just, just to see how different they are, how different, they had, some of them had this big shark fin up top, which is the air intake. Some of them were smaller. You were obsessed with the mirrors, the side mirrors.
Yes, because the side mirrors were ridiculous on some of these cars. There's one is literally... Okay. Yeah, okay. For the people listening on Spotify, it's on a long metal
you don't think
stick.
It's very
and then it's just hanging up. Check out our IG or our socials or our YouTube to see a picture of it. But it's ridiculous because you cannot tell me that that's aerodynamic.
No.
But I love it. You know, I'm obsessed with it. However, there was also these orange F1 cars. They were completely unhinged.
Oh,
there was a metal bars going from the right and left of your helmet was connecting somewhere in the pod of the car, right?
Yeah.
But essentially your neck is in between that.
Yes.
And I'm also if this car crashes, this might wrap around your neck.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think they were at danger in the Long Beach Grand Prix, but I mean back in the day when they were actually racing this for realsies. And that was unhinged.
Yes.
But it is really awesome also to just hear the sound of them.
Yes.
And of course, most of them, they don't have they still have manual shifting, I believe, right?
Yes.
Because they're so old, they don't have the paddle shifters.
Yeah.
How the current F1s have it. F1 cars have it.
Yeah.
But that was really, really awesome, regardless of how long the racing actually was.
Yes.
Because we did get to see him on the second day again. On the third day, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. What we also saw on the second day was the IMSA race, which was really cool. So they had, of course, the hypercar category, and then they have the GT car category, or they call it.
You mean the 100-minute race?
Yes.
Was that on Saturday?
That was IMSA, yeah, Saturday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was on Saturday. They had the hypercar category, and then they also had the GT car category.
I think, I don't know if this is a spoiler, or maybe it's fine. I'm just going to say it now. I think for me, that was the best race of the weekend.
Oh, yes.
I think it was the best race. Because we did get to see a bunch of overtakes. Obviously, when you have two categories of wildly different speeds racing, there will be automatically overtakes. It was also very interesting how fast the prototype cars caught up to the GT3 cars. I will say, however, within the GT3 category, you also had like wildly different speed.
Yes.
But it was still really awesome to see. We did also see battling within the classes.
Yes.
And we did get to see some overtakes right on that where we were sitting. So it was really awesome to watch.
Yeah.
And then also, once again, like, I don't know what Aston Martin is doing with their cars, but they're definitely doing something with them, because by far the Aston Martin sounded best on the track. By far.
Especially the prototype one.
The prototype car,
I mean, it sounded like a dream.
Yeah, it sounded very close to an F1 car.
Yes.
And it just sounded, it sounded like a dream, especially when it was like really like, because where we were sitting, they were going, pedal to the metal. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And they were going full speed or building up to it. And then you can also hear the upshift.
Yes.
And it sounded so gorgeous.
Oh, it's so good. And it's also really fun to see or to hear the different cars, because of course you have lots of different manufacturers. Anybody from, of course, like Aston Martin, Porsche, BMW, you have Corvettes, you have Lamborghinis, Ferraris. I mean, like, they're a variety, and they all sound, of course, very different. And then, of course, different people have different preferences. We both love the prototype, the Aston Martin. It definitely sounded the best. And we also overheard other people saying that it sounded just gorgeous.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it was it was a fun race. There was some safety cars in there too, which just makes sense. I mean, it's a street track. It's very tight. There's two tiny runoff areas.
Yeah, I think it's going technically into first left-hander. There's, instead of that it goes to the fountain. I don't know if that's considered T1 or T2. I think that's T1. I don't know, but essentially first left-hander. Yeah. There's a runoff area in case you send it too far. And then there is one right before the where the drifting started.
Yes.
I don't know which T that was, T9 or something like that, T10.
But yeah, so those were definitely our highlights for day 2. And then day 3, the main event was, of course, the Indy race. That day was definitely also the busiest. Our grandstand was packed. Yeah. People were still trying to seat in other people's seats. Yes. And I'm like, bro, this is the day where everybody comes. You cannot just choose and pick willy-nilly where you want to sit.
Yeah, because especially on day 2 and 3, they did check your tickets.
Yeah, you got a little stamp with your grandstand number on it.
Exactly, and then they do check that you're in the right section, because like each grandstand, so we were grandstand 29 and had 3 sections.
Yes.
So they're like, oh, you're in the right section. And then they also advise you how best to get to your seats.
Yes.
But when the first time we got to them, someone was sitting in our seats. And then it turned out that they weren't even in that area at all. So I'm like, did you get lost? And then it seemed like almost they were annoyed that we were asking to sit in our seats.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was like reading into that, but I'm like, yo, I paid for these seats. I'm gonna be sitting here.
No, exactly, and, literally.
I don't care if you're mad about that.
But on the last day, we did a little bit more. Well, I bought one more thing. I had bought the patch on the last day. We walked around a little bit, and then of course we watched the end bit of the driver parade we saw, or for like the pre-race event for Indy, and then the big race. And then of course, if you watched or listened to our previous episodes, we got there early in the morning to sit in a car in the parking lot to watch the Formula One race, because we didn't want anybody to spoil it potentially, because there's of course a lot of F1 fans there too. Yeah,
you saw like a lot of people with F1 swag, but I will say, I thought it was so I was convinced if we were not going to watch the race, I was going to overhear the results of the race.
Oh, yes.
But because we watched it, I didn't hear anyone talk about it.
Seriously,
But
nobody.
I knew exactly my luck would be then that I would run into some overhear it. So we watched it in the car, which it was fine. My car's comfortable enough to sit there for
easy.
like an hour and a half. And what I did wanted to mention, what we did also on day 2, I think we did the Honda experience.
Oh, yes, we did do that on day 2.
So the Honda experience is essentially they were on a rooftop of a parking garage that kind of is part of the Long Beach Grand Prix, and so you sign up and you put in your information, of course.
A bunch of waivers and bullshit.
Yeah, a bunch of waivers and
usual.
whatever, right? And they just want to take your information and sell it somewhere else. Truly, that's really what it is. But you just use your spam email, whatever.
Yeah.
But then they have had their top of the line off-road car, and essentially they have like this obstacle course.
Yes.
You don't get to drive it because people are too unhinged, and they would immediately probably send it over the. They're like, oh, do I go off the road here, right? No, but you get to sit in the car. They did something similar at the LA Auto Show.
Yes.
I'm sure they do it all over.
Yes.
And they set up these obstacle courses for them to drive over, and it is always it is fun, I think.
I think so, yes.
And usually when you sit in the car, the driver will give you a little bit spiel about the car, what it can do, and look at all the different cameras. And it is cool, but for someone who plans my next car to be a 2-seater, I am not the what is it, the audience?
No, not at all.
I thought it was very interesting.
It was, and all the specs were really cool. All the additional cameras that they have, and because you went up this really big steep incline, and it goes down really steep, of course, too. Then there's a part where just the right side of the car is elevated, then the left side, I guess, if you were going over a bump or a rock or something like that, and it shows the cameras how you can perfectly align the vehicle, and it's all great.
Yes.
And fun. But yeah, I mean, neither of us is the audience for it.
Correct.
Because your next car might be, am I allowed to say?
Yeah.
A Miata?
Yeah. I would definitely get a Miata if I can't afford a Porsche.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is probably
so
more
it's
likely.
not an off-road vehicle at all.
No.
And it's like half the size.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's much lighter. I mean, my car already now is pretty small. I have a Hyundai Veloster Turbo 6-speed. Okay, it's stick shift. Okay, remember that?
Get real.
And it already only has like 3 passenger doors.
Yeah.
And it already is quite tight.
Yes.
You have an even smaller car.
But Mini Cooper.
Yeah, but I'm trying to downsize. But I'm just like, listen, I never have a third person with me. And if I do, get a fucking Uber.
Or get a rental car or something.
Yeah, honestly, we'll figure it out. But like 90% of my life or 95% of my life, it's either me or it's me and another person, and the other person most of the time is you in the car. So, dude, no.
That's so true. But yeah, that was a fun experience. Yeah. We didn't do a lot of...
And you get a free t-shirt for doing it.
And a water bottle.
That's true. Actually, you got a lot of swag.
You got a lot for it.
And I got a compliment for my hat. So that's 3 things for the price of 0.
Of your personal information.
I think I also put in my social security number.
just for extra.
I was like, they were like, any comments? I'm like, just in case.
Did you want to say it now?
Yeah, I wanted to say it. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh man. Okay. But we did do.
It's not even live, and they already hacked me. Okay, sorry.
We didn't do a lot of the interactive or activations that were there, just because the lines were so long.
Yeah.
And we weren't interested in getting a little
duffel bag or whatever.
Or I mean, not even a duffel bag, like a little plastic string bag.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It wasn't. That's not a duffel bag.
No.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah. It's one of those. Yeah, string bags. And then, for example, with AAA, like if we're gonna keep talking about these activations, they had a like how do you call it?
Spin the wheel,
spin the wheel, but it's not even a real wheel. It's digital, so the odds are probably 1 in a million for you to get the good out of the shitty things that they give out.
Yeah,
you know?
so
like,
true.
Get out of my face.
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
All right. Do we want to talk about our just overall recap for the weekend?
Oh wait, did we want to talk about the Indy race?
Sure. I mean, yeah, we can talk about the Indy race.
So, for us, the Indy race,
you watched most of the qualifying.
Yes.
Or all of the qualifying.
I did watch all
I
of the
missed a little bit of a qualifying.
So the qualifying is, and I know I made a video about this last year, but don't ask me to remember how Indy works, right? But especially if you don't keep up with it, and like it doesn't matter. I thought it was really cool because
people are gonna be so sad that he said it doesn't matter.
I mean, it doesn't matter what I'm trying, why I'm trying to explain myself that I forgot. You know, it just is what it is. But if you don't keep up with it, then you don't know sometimes how things work, or I'm not gonna remember how the point system works. But anyways, what I thought was interesting, so they had two different groups that did their first initial qualifying session.
Yes.
Then out of those, the top 6 of each group went on. And then out of that, the top 6 were the fastest 6, and they then battled for first through 6th place.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So it was really cool because then you also get to see them like really going for it and pushing for it. And then no spoiler alert, but the person, and I think this is something that just happens with how you say it,
street races.
With street races, that the person who qualified
in first
wins.
Yeah.
You know, it is like, of course the pitch strategy is important.
Yeah.
But
and I mean, there's also things could happen, like accidents, getting into the wall.
Of course. But this was notoriously the most well-behaved IndyCar Long Beach Grand Prix race. I saw articles about it.
Yeah.
Which, as a viewer, I would say was a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it was still cool to see
IndyCar
in person,
to
see how fast they go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because especially on the straight, and I mean, this is not even the track that shows really like their full speed, you know, because there aren't these really, really long straights, but it was just so impressive. And also...
And it says, here, it says average speed is 100.395. I'm assuming because this is an American series, this is 100 miles an hour. So average speed 100 miles.
Yeah.
That's pretty goddamn fast.
Well, especially for that track.
That's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
So I mean that's insane. But it was just really cool to see. Also impressed by how much smaller the Indy cars were than I had imagined. I thought they would be longer for whatever reason, but seeing them in person.
But I think it's good that they're not that long.
No, it is great, especially for a track like this.
Yeah.
That's why they can race on a track like that.
Yeah.
I think. But it was also like once you stood right by the fence.
It was insane.
And it was bonkers how fast they went, and then even trying to capture it on camera, it's like I mean it's an experience that I hope anybody who likes motorsports will enjoy at some point, because it is really impressive.
Yeah, because like, I mean, we did record some stuff, but once again, I don't think the camera does justice.
Yes.
Especially in the grandstands, you can kind of obviously see the car coming and leaving.
Yeah.
But if you're right by the fence, it is like less than a second,
Yeah.
and then they're past you, and then with the sound, and it's so booming.
Yeah.
It was really, really awesome.
Yeah, it was so loud that weekend.
It was so loud, but in a cool way.
In a cool way, for sure. Neither of us had put in like earplugs or was wearing headphones or anything. I think by day 3, I was like, oof.
I could have used it.
I could have definitely, because as much as I love the sound, it was at times, it was so...
Yeah.
I mean, it's just probably also just not healthy to hear that noise level at such long hours for such long times, you know.
Absolutely.
I mean, everybody who's working there is wearing earplugs.
Yeah, especially because they were also sometimes even closer than we were. But I think in going forward, I think I will always pack some headphones or something like that, protective gear for my ears, just because I can listen to it for a little bit and then I can go and protect my ears.
Yeah.
This weekend would have probably been not in the cards for me anyways, because I had the allergic reaction in my ear.
Yes.
Being dramatic.
We did buy, last year we bought these Bluetooth noise canceling kind of headphones that we had originally got for the NASCAR The Clash event to connect our headsets also to the NASCAR radio then.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I wish I would have brought for this weekend.
Which I think would have made the Indy car
race more fun.
Oh yeah, a better experience just because the screen that we had, it didn't indicate, unfortunately, who had already pitted and anything like that. So sometimes like the standings were completely out of sync because obviously some people had pitted, some people didn't, but there was no indication if you cannot hear the commentator. There's just no way.
No way.
So I think that's more our bad because the guy next to me had it. He had like a whole setup.
Yes.
And I think going forward, I'll know to bring that. I didn't think we didn't need it in Sonoma, but this is just like better to be prepared in the future. You know, this is a learning experience. If you've never been, I would highly recommend you bring something.
Yes,
because
exactly.
IndyCar as well as NASCAR, they do always have a radio broadcast that you can listen to.
Yeah.
And I think it makes an overall better experience.
Yeah, because it's also just a little bit more informative. You know a little bit more what's going on besides seeing your section of the track. And maybe if you're lucky like us, you have a screen there.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about like our overall takeaway for the weekend. First question, would you go back?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So I think because we've talked about this, so last year we attended Sonoma. This year we did Long Beach Grand Prix. I think I would rather attend a different race.
Yeah.
I would attend Indy again. I think the next time I would go for a track.
Or oval?
No, oval
Okay.
probably not so much.
Okay.
I would want to first do a track.
Okay.
So maybe like Coda or something like that. But I think overall, I think it's an awesome experience, especially if you're in the area. I would recommend going. I think if you're gonna just do one day, of course, try to either shoot for the Sunday or the Saturday because on Saturday you still get a race to watch, and I think it was an awesome experience.
Yes.
Especially you can also then watch the second Formula Drift race. You got to see the first GT America Challenge race on the Saturday, so that you still get a bunch of races, just not the main Indy race. So I would go again, but I would probably prefer to go to a different race before that.
Yeah, I agree. I have the same opinion. I had a great experience. I think it was really fun, super memorable. Lots of great memories from this weekend. But yes, just because money is limited.
Yeah.
So and I would like to go to another race sometime soon. So I would probably prioritize a different race just because I've experienced Long Beach now and it was great, but I want to experience something else.
Absolutely.
So I think a different race would have a priority. I would also say maybe this race weekend was just a slightly tainted or at a disadvantage from the incredible experience we also had last year in Sonoma.
Yes.
Because the only downside to this weekend was that I feel like
I don't think the paddock pass is worth it.
yes, so the IndyCar paddock pass wasn't worth it for us.
Yeah.
I think maybe for like huge Indy fans, yes, for sure.
Or at least get it, or maybe get it for one day. Don't get it for the whole weekend.
Yeah. If you intend to spend a lot of time there, sure. I don't think it was worth it for us personally. And it was also just the paddocks in general. I don't think they were quite as interactive
as last year.
as we
Sonoma.
had the pleasure of experiencing in Sonoma. Granted, in Sonoma, we also went the first day. I think we went on the Friday, we went to the paddocks.
And there, it was a combination. Of course, it is a smaller event.
Yes.
It was a Friday. There was even less people. And then they had the whole thing that they were redoing the track because of damage.
Yeah.
But it was so awesome to attend that first day. We interacted with so many people from the pits.
Yeah.
We sat in cars.
Yes.
And I understand that you cannot do this in Long Beach, but it's just the preferential experience for me.
Yes. Oh, no, exactly. So
Yeah.
that's why I can highly recommend going to Sonoma. I can definitely recommend going to Long Beach as well.
And Long Beach is also a vibe.
Yes.
Everyone was like in a good mood.
Yeah.
And like when the drift event was happening, there was a bunch of like before they were setting up like regular people in like these little carts driving around.
Yes,
and then the whole audience always went wild for them. And they were yelling, and then it just kind of cheered up these workers who were just like doing their job, setting things up. And it was a cool vibe.
Yes.
For sure.
For sure. But yeah, that's the only. I mean, of course, we criticized their autograph signing session craziness. But then, just the paddocks weren't quite as personable as they were. Maybe it's also because we didn't go first thing in the morning.
Yes.
You know, that could definitely be it. But that was the only other downside for me personally. But I had an overall great experience. It
And I'm glad I went.
So fun. Oh, yes,
100%.
100%. So glad we get to experience and also see all these cars, hear the cars. It's just, it's almost... reignites, not that it wasn't ignited, but my passion for it, for motorsport, because just hearing it in person, you know, like, and smelling it, like, you have a full, like, sensory experience that you don't get from home. I mean, I love watching motorsports from home. You could be comfortable on the couch, you have it on the screen, you have all the different angles, so you see everything that's happening, you hear the commentators loud and clear. So it's a different experience, and I love watching from home or in community and stuff like that too. But just being in person is just a whole different experience.
And also when you arrive, so the first day we arrived, because we arrived at like 12, people were already practicing on track. And then when you're walking up to it, right, you can already hear the sound, because when we were walking up to it, I think it was GT3 cars that were practicing. And oh my Lord, the sound is booming.
Yes.
We both had goosebumps just walking through that like parking garage to get to the entrance. And it was so like the sound is really like such a huge part of the experience. And once again, I'm really glad that we went. And I do want to point out again, I want to list all the races that we watched this weekend. On track as well as on screen, because it was an insane amount.
Yes, we did watch an insane amount.
We watched Formula Drift.
Yes.
We watched Indy. We watched IMSA. We watched the GT Challenge or whatever.
GT America
Challenge. You watched Supercross.
Well, first we also watched the historic Formula exhibit race. So that's all the stuff that we watched part of the stadium super trucks. It was mostly practice that we've seen, but we saw that on track as well. So you saw 6 different types of races
there
on the track. And that's not including some of the qualifying or practice sessions that we've seen. Yes.
Then we watched Formula 1. We watched MotoGP. You watched Supercross. I watched World WCR. And I watched a 4-hour race of European Le Mans series.
Yes.
So that's 11 races.
11 races.
That we watched this weekend. That's a lot of motorsport. But I think what helps tremendously, which is really awesome about motorsport, is that because I watched such a big variety of things, I was never oversaturated by it. Yeah.
I did have a moment on Sunday. I was like, oof, I'm feeling fatigued. But, I mean, it's already over because I'm enjoying just talking about the memories, and I'm excited for what's coming this weekend. But I had a moment where I was like, wow. I think I just had the realization, wow, we watched a lot of, like, our weekend was motorsports.
Yeah,
which is not a bad thing to be.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
It was motorsports.
I was in Long Beach, and I was watching all these cars doing this cool stuff. You know?
I know. The one thing I hope to experience one day is
yes, I know exactly what you're gonna say.
Is a hot lap.
Yes.
In a sports car. Would love to do the Indy experience where there's a 2-seater Indy car. So that would be really fun. And then also going to hot tip. I'm sure you guys already know about this, but going to Silverstone to have the Formula 1 experience.
Yes. Well, Silverstone is Formula 4, right?
I mean, it's a
Formula
experience.
It's
a Formula experience. It's close to Formula 1 as it gets.
Yeah, honestly, it's 3 steps away. And 150 kilometers. Okay. So overall, I think it was a huge success.
Yes.
We had an amazing time. We avoided any major sunburns also because we had sunscreen.
Yes.
Very important, especially if you attend in Long Beach.
Yes.
Bring that because we saw a lot of burnt necks.
Ooh, so many burnt necks.
Yes, I could say burnt necks.
Yeah.
And overall, we had a fantastic experience.
Yes.
Do you have anything else you would like to add? Any thoughts?
I do. I want to say also just quickly in terms of merch, they had a great variety of merch there. They had representations from all the different types of races, pretty much.
Much better merch than Sonoma had. Sonoma was whack.
Yes, that is very true. So they had
You bought a T-shirt for children.
I did, yes. because there's
You
no
bought
other
a
one.
t-shirt for children, but you fit into kids'
I
clothes.
some of them I
Yeah.
do, but
So, yeah. Sorry.
well, no, it's fine. I was gonna say, the variety of merch was really cool. They had representation from all the different like Indy, IMSA, GT. They sometimes specific teams had stands too. So that was really nice. And the
Yeah.
merch, the prices weren't
I mean,
outrageous.
so for the shirts, the drift shirts, we paid $35 each. I paid for my Indy hat, the corduroy, that is worth every penny, $40.
Yes.
And you paid for the jacket.
Was $60.
It was $60, which is actually, it's a Dickies jacket,
Yeah.
so it's actually quite high quality. And then you paid for the patch $10.
Yeah, and then the GP hats were 35 each, I think.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes. And then I will also say that I think if that's a concern for anyone, there's a huge variety of foods. So you should be able to find foods for everyone. So they had everything from burgers to burritos to fried chicken.
Yes.
And there was also CPK.
Yeah.
There was, I think, also there was also food trucks that we didn't even go to. They had teriyaki bowls.
Yeah, all
And,
kinds of stuff.
Some of those food stands did also have vegetarian and vegan options. I will say, I don't know if this is more of a California thing where they're more conscious of that. I don't know if you would experience that everywhere you go.
Yeah,
However, so that was really awesome. Big thing also that was a huge issue for you. It was a Pepsi event.
Oh,
So Pia drinks Diet Coke or whatever diet, but she hates Diet Pepsi. Not getting Pepsi sponsorship, I
Nope,
think. But
never.
I love Pepsi. So you could sponsor this side that goes well with the Coke.
I was gonna say this is the Pepsi color.
Well, good thing that we're far away from getting any type of sponsors.
I know, seriously. But no, that is very true. It's a thing to point out. It was a Pepsi's event,
Yeah.
so all beverages, unless you had like an agua fresca, was Pepsi product.
Yeah, we ended up getting sweet tea at the end. That was good.
That was insane.
Yes, but it is a Pepsi event, so you're not going to find any Coke products.
Yeah.
I don't know if people care about that, but
I think
something
some
to point
people
out.
would care about it.
However,
Yes.
what was also really cool and important, and I know I'm keep dragging this on, but we brought our own water bottles.
Yes.
And there's plenty of stations where you can fill up your water.
Yeah.
They had from the Long Beach water power supply
Yeah.
utility company. They were there. They had huge tanks set up where you can fill up your water for free.
Yeah.
And then in the exhibition,
It sounds inappropriate. Exhibition. in the expo hall.
Is it not exhibition?
No, I think
Oh.
it's right. It just sounds weird.
In the expo, there were also stations where you could fill up your
Yes.
water.
Yeah.
There was also plenty of places that handed out drinks for free. Everything from energy drinks.
Lots of energy drinks. Electrolyte beverages
Yes.
too. Paulana Sunset,
Yes, the
a
diet
German.
one.
Yes,
that
it's
was
so
very good. But I would highly recommend, however, when you attend an event like this, bring your own preferably like thermal
Yeah.
water bottle where your water stays cool because it does get hot.
Yeah, and you can bring snacks and
Yeah.
food. There's some limitations to it, but you
No alcoholic
technically
beverages.
yeah, but you technically don't have to buy food or drinks
Yeah,
in there.
you don't
You
have to.
can bring enough with you to eat.
Yeah.
So that's if that's a financial or just a question that you have. So
Yeah.
that's definitely an option. First day, like we said, we had just had our Trader Joe's that we brought.
Our
And then
snacks, yeah.
day 2 and day 3, we had lunch there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was pretty much it. But yeah, overall, great experience. Highly recommend it. If you guys are considering going, definitely go. Even if you just want to go for a day, just be prepared. There's going to be lots to see, lots to do, lots to buy, lots to eat. So pack your walking shoes or pack comfortable shoes, pack sunscreen, pack your water bottle, and be ready for a good time because it's a good time.
Yeah. So this will wrap up the Long Beach Grand Prix special episode.
Yes.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're on Spotify, hit that follow and give us a high rating.
Yes.
Okay, only high ratings are accepted over here. And then on Spotify, we will be seeing you or hearing from us on Monday again with our regular recap of the weekend because Formula One is back. We
Yes.
have IMSA WEC 6 hour of Imola that I'm going to try to attempt to
Oh,
watch.
yes.
And on YouTube, we will actually be back tomorrow with everything that you can watch racing related this upcoming weekend.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye. Oh, like and subscribe on YouTube, okay? Press the button.
Bye.